Good evening, and welcome to the American Cathedral in Paris. My name is Zach Ullery, and I'm the Canon for Music. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our first Friday's virtual organ recital series. On the first Friday of every month, we'll be joined by brilliant organists from around the world who at some point in their career were associated with the American Cathedral in Paris. Tonight, we travel to Cambridgeshire, to Ely Cathedral, where we'll be joined by Edmund Aldhouse, a former assisting organist.
Good evening, bonsoir, and welcome to Ely Cathedral. My name is Edmund Aldhouse, and I'm the Director of Music here in this wonderful building. Ely Cathedral is one of the largest and finest cathedrals in the United Kingdom, about 15 miles from Cambridge in the east of England. I shall be giving tonight's recital in the American Cathedral's First Fridays series on the magnificent Harrison & Harrison organ that you can see behind my right shoulder. The instrument itself was mostly constructed between 1906 and 1908, but the casework is somewhat older and merits a word in itself. It was designed in the 19th century by George Gilbert Scott during the reordering of this building, and it permits an uninterrupted view from the west to the east of Ely Cathedral, one of the longest cathedral buildings in this country. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to have been asked to give a recital in the American Cathedral series tonight. The Cathedral, 23 Avenue Georges V, has always been very, very special to me. It's a place that I first discovered as a student back in 1999 when I went to Paris to improve my French, and I'd been told by a friend that I needed to make a beeline for the American Cathedral, both in order to find an organ to practice on and a choir to sing with, and I was not disappointed. From my first meeting with Ned Tipton and all of the members of the choir there, I found a lovely, warm and welcoming community, often described as a home away from home, and it was somewhere that I naturally gravitated back to when I returned to Paris 7 or 8 years later to pursue and perfect my organ studies. And once again I joined the choir and frequently played for services and loved being involved in the life of the place, and a particular privilege more recently, just before the pandemic, was to bring my choir here from Ely to sing at the American Cathedral in Paris, which we all greatly enjoyed and we really appreciated the welcome. The organ of the cathedral, of course, is also something very special. The cavaille-colle instrument is very, very fine and almost unique, I think, in its category of being such an impeccably French instrument in that more traditional Anglican context. And I've spent many happy hours playing it and perfecting my organ repertoire and technique on it, but I think that we would all agree now, and I know that the current canon for music, Zach Ullery, and the organist Andrew Drewer would particularly agree with me, that it is a thing of shreds and patches and in need of some improvement. I certainly remember, and this is going back 10 or 12 years now, one or two really hair-raising moments when I was playing. In particular, I am not the only organist in this series to remember all of his preset combinations of stops disappearing 15 minutes before a recital, and it couldn't have been worse luck because it was before I was about to perform the Sonata Eroica by Joseph Jongen, which is probably the longest continuous span of organ music that anybody plays regularly. So there I was with a 20-minute piece and all of my combinations of stops had disappeared and I had to reorganize it just at the last minute. And that is not atypical. I remember also all kinds of problems with the famous party horns at the back end of the cathedral, suddenly appearing in pianissimo moments during the communion motet, much to everybody's amusement but also annoyance. So I'm really pleased to be helping by giving this recital to further the cause of the restoration that wonderful instrument so desperately needs, so that it can continue to contribute to the musical life of Paris in a way that I know is appreciated not only by the regular members of the congregation at the American Cathedral, but also by many visitors to the city and by Parisian musical life more largely. There's great appreciation among the French-speaking community for the wonderful liturgical and choral riches that are offered at the American Cathedral week by week and month by month. My programme tonight encompasses 3 pieces. The first of them is the Rhapsody on a Ground by the English composer Heathcote Statham, who was organist of Norwich Cathedral, not very far from here. It is a piece based on a ground bass, so a repeating pattern heard first in the pedals, and a sort of variation structure, I suppose, if you will. It's a wonderful piece to choose, particularly in this context, because it gives me a chance to show off all of the colour, richness and versatility of the magnificent 80-stop organ just behind me. Then the central offering in the programme is a French work, Olivier Messiaen's Le Banquet Céleste, possibly my favourite piece of his. It's an evocation of the Blessed Sacrament and of Holy Communion, and I've chosen it partly because I'm so fond of it, but also because it's a piece that I first learnt and performed at the American Cathedral. So there's a very strong and special link between that piece and the Cavaillé-Coll instrument there. And then my programme finishes with the Toccata Fugue and Hymn on Ave Maris Stella by Floor Peters. Floor Peters, a Dutch-speaking Belgian composer, but very much a sort of sponge and absorber of influences. The Toccata Fugue and Hymn is very, very redolent of similar French music written at the time, and of course it uses a melody which has inspired generations of composers all over the world, beginning with an exciting, really brilliant dynamic toccata, and then a lovely melodic lyrical fugue, nothing over formal or austere about this. It's very rich and enticing. And then the last thing we hear is the hymn tune above a walking pedal with some delicious harmonic modifications, and at that point you hear the whole panoply of the organ as the piece reaches its peroration. So I do hope that you enjoy tonight's recital, and that you will continue to support all of the wonderful work that is done by my colleagues at the American Cathedral in Paris.